Here I am to talk about season 6.
Awesome. Thank you, Zoser. So we'll have Cruz introduce himself when he gets in here. But today's conversation is going to be strictly about origins, like sort of like the structure of the season, everything that happens in between the matches, right? So we're not necessarily going to be talking about balance, about like card balancing at this point in time. We're going to be talking about everything else surrounding it, right? So I guess I'll start off with the most pertinent question that I'm sure is on everybody's minds right now, and that is, when does the season start?
The season starts 99.9% in 48 hours. So for most of you guys, well, I don't even know if it's most, but I'm going to say most, October 4th. For me, it's the night of October 3rd. But if you're confused on what I'm saying, just set a timer right now for 48 hours. And when that timer runs up, season 6 will probably be starting right then. So we're real close at this point. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, 2 days, everybody. 2 days, 48 hours. Mark your calendars. Make those alarms and get ready, because season 6 is going to start fast and hard. Everyone's going to be going crazy. All right, now I was wondering about the eras, because we've seen eras change from season to season. I think we're still trying to find that perfect middle ground. Are we seeing more changes to the eras this season as well?
Yeah, so we are actually going to see an era change this season. And just so you guys know, I like to do a lot of visuals when I speak. So make sure to head over to the view only chat. And hopefully people are posting it right now in the chat. I'm having to click 7 different places at once, but just make sure someone right now in the like the live chat that you guys are flying by in, that someone does the hashtag view only chat. So anyway, because I'm gonna be posting a lot there.
I just want to add for those of you who have had recent issues with the Discord system, the view only chat might not be located next to the stage. If the stage is on the bottom of your Discord screen, you might need to scroll all the way to the top, and you'll find the view only chat under the Axie community tab.
Yeah, for me it's at the top. I heard for some people it's like down below, so you just got to kind of scroll up and down until you find it. But yeah, so anyway, back to the era stuff. Are the eras the same? No, we made a small change. It was actually based on a few ideas I had heard, which I liked, and that's the cool thing about, just working on Twitter and like speaking to community members and living in 2023 where developers and players actually interact, is that like people mention good ideas and we think them over and we're like, yeah, that's cool, let's do it. So the big change here is we have the rare era, the epic era, and the mystic era is now in a star because the final era is back. And kind of how to look at this is like the final era is basically what the mystic era was, and we kind of squeezed in this other era as well. So the rare era, nothing's changed. It's going to be 2 weeks. I know a lot of you guys love that. The rare era is super polarizing. It's a lot of people's favorite era. It's a lot of people's least favorite era. I'll give my opinion later if you guys want it. And then there's the epic era for 14 days. And then there is a little kind of like a check-in era. We're going to call it the Mystic era just because it makes sense from the old days to have the final still. But there's like kind of like the Mystic era, which is now what I consider kind of a check-in era. And the reason this kind of exists now is because it's obviously when the Mystic era, like the old one, when the Mystic runes and charms unlock, let's just say, a lot of people will kind of wait potentially 10 or 11 days and then kind of reveal their best teams and then kind of buy all their runes and charms, and that's cool and all. But we want to add a little extra step to reward those people that want to play kind of early in the Mystic era, whether they happen to get some lucky crafts, whether they happen to buy their runes and charms early, whether they happen to kind of put their best team forward early. And so that's the purpose of this Mystic era that lasts 1 week, is that after 1 week, there's already going to be a smallish, and we'll look at the rewards soon, there'll be kind of a smallish AXS payout to reward people that got off to a good start when Mystic Runes and Charms unlocked. Then there'll still be a full 2 weeks to do the final era, which is going to be obviously sort of the biggest and kind of the end of the season and all that. So it's just a small change. This does make the season 7 weeks, which we actually like for development reasons and stuff. It's actually a little better if the season is like 7 or 8 weeks. So the season going from 6 to 7 weeks also helps. So that's the big change here. As far as eras go.
It's interesting. So we're going to have a whole extra era, extra 7 days. That's more opportunities for people to earn some AXS, more opportunities to get your name on the leaderboard for an era finish. I'd love to see how this plays out. Now, I'm assuming that with era changes, that's also going to come with some AXS payout changes as well. And I think we've got a bit of a leak from that last week's town hall. Could we touch on that a bit?
Yeah, so first let's just do the general breakdown before we show the specifics of the leaderboard, which I know a lot of people are probably waiting for. But just because we did this last season, I think this is a good way to show it as well, which is just the breakdown of how much AXS is going out this season and how does that fall.
Perfect.
So we are doing it as such. When you see the leaderboard, it's going to make more sense. I feel like the leaderboard, even though it lost 10,000 total AXS, is actually better this time around. It'll make sense when you see it, but I think we've really optimized it so that the people that really care about the leaderboard and the people that are competitive are getting more from it, and the people that really like fortune chess and contests are like kind of getting more from that. So it's kind of more, I think it's more optimized. So we've got, 75,000 on the leaderboard this time. We've got the contest, which has been bumped up significantly. So when you look at contests compared to last season in Fortune Chess, we didn't really know how those, like what kind of the deal with those would be. That you don't forget, last season was the first season that we ever put AXS in places other than the leaderboard. Traditionally in Axie, I think all the way through Classic even, the only way you could get AXS by playing like Axie in some way, like of course Axie Infinity, Origins or Classic, was through the leaderboard. But last season was the first season where we're like, oh, you know what? Let's not put on the leaderboard. Let's like allow other methods. So there was a big experiment. Well, based on that experiment, contest is just much more flexible. So it's really important that we're still providing feedback, and also like that I'm looking at data and stuff, is because contests can be really cool because they can do so many different things. They can be races, they can be casual, they can be free to play, they can be pay to win. So there's a big lever for contests, and so they were performing really well. And so we're like, okay, we want to allocate more AXS there and also experiment more there. And then fortune chests are interesting because we feel like we can still give out runes and charms there and have them be super valuable. We also think there's still a big SLP play in fortune chess as well. So because of those two reasons, I don't think we need quite as much AXS there. Weekly missions is unchanged. It's in a pretty good place. We took care of some bot stuff, but like in general, weekly missions was like pretty accurate. I think we paid out pretty close to 5,000. And then collectible Axie bonus chests. That's interesting. Well, we're going to have to talk about that one later, but let's just say there's some AXS allocated to that because we are trying, even on behalf of Origins, to add value to collectible Axies. And that's sort of a big kind of movement going on. I don't know if you guys are kind of seeing or feeling it, but definitely it's very important for Axie Infinity, of course, to have utility and value in these collectible Axies, the summer through Mystic Axies. So we'll talk about that one in a bit.
That's crazy. I'm on the edge of my seat, and I feel like a lot of the audience is as well, especially Cairo, the collectible master. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
No, you're good. And then there's just a 500 backup. We ran into some small things this season where we're like, oh, there was like some compensation needed or some things where we're just like, all right, it's better to just allocate a little safety net to it. And yeah, we'll see from there. So that's the breakdown. But probably more exciting than the breakdown is the, what do you call that? Oh yeah, the leaderboard. So now I'm going to show kind of two quickly at once so you guys can look at both. The first one's going to be the leaderboard as it's going to be. The second one is going to be the comparison of the leaderboard to Season 5. So you guys can very just intuitively look at it and go, oh, we can see which player brackets compared to last season are getting more or less. So let me just post those two really quick. So the first one's coming here. So this is the leaderboard. The big thing to notice, of course, besides the 4 eras, is only top 10,000 get paid. We don't really need to do top 20,000 anymore, and I can go into the reason I believe that's true soon. And then there's going to be more up top. And then you're probably wondering there's stuff in yellow too, and that actually has an explanation as well. The yellow is actually a very big deal to this. We'll go over. But just for the sake of what you get the moment the era ends, this is all true. So this is how it's going to be. Now I also want to show what the percentage is different to Season 5 so that it's easier without doing a side-by-side view and a whole bunch of math for you guys to see, okay, what's the difference between last season? And so that's the second one right here. So I'll just go over it with you guys quickly so we can look at it top to bottom. So the first place, how to read this is the first place player compared to last season, if you add up all 4 eras, by the way, is getting 157% more. So like 57% more AXS. So in season 6, which is the one I just showed, there's a total of 3,500 if you add up all rare, epic, mystic, final. So there's 3,500 AXS, and last season it was 2,200. So there's more, right? So we can just fly through the rest. So second place, third, fourth, fifth seed. So you guys can see that there's anywhere from 20 to 17 to 57% more in the top 10. And then 11 that continues, 16 to 25, 26 to 40, 41 to 65, all the way to, so 151 to 225 is still getting a little bit more even. And then it starts to dip down from 226 and lower. Now, keep in mind how percentages work, and you can look at the raw numbers. Like 95% means 95 of 100%. It means like it's only missing 4%. So it's a difference between, as you can see, 38 AXS or 39.8. It's very small, right? So it's very small gaps. The main thing is that a lot of this is coming from the fact that we don't have a 10,000 to 20,000 anymore. And then we wanted to put more up top as well. So we can go more into this in the Q&A if you guys are interested, but the general thinking is that we want to have kind of a polarized way to earn AXS, where you can either be sort of a fun casual player, or however you want to call that, and just kind of play every day and get lucky even a little bit and do fortune chests and use all your 30 stamina because you're not scared of the decay, or you're not, what is it called, like a little bit of camping. You're not really scared of losing elo, so you just use all your stamina every day and you do great in fortune chests, and you're the kind of player that plays contests and you're doing all your missions and all that. And so we want to have that be a good way to earn AXS. But then the players that are super competitive, that put all their time and effort into strategizing and theory crafting and all that, we want to make sure that the reward at the top is quite high. That's why we need it to be I feel like it's very important that it's still attractive at the top, and that's one thing we didn't do a great job in last season, I think, that we're optimizing for this season. Right?
I think
so. I'll let that digest. Yeah.
I think the mentality behind this is great. I think having this avenue for more casual players to be more involved in different aspects of the ecosystem, especially like breeding, which I think is one of the most fun aspects of the ecosystem, which you need AXS to do. And this is now allowing everyone to experience that. So yeah. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, and I'm excited to see how it works in this next season. And I'm assuming that with the introduction of this new era, the changes of the changes of the AXS payout, we haven't really heard that much about the new top 8 tournament that will determine our top placements. And could you tell us a little bit more about this situation? We heard about it a little bit last week, but this is a really exciting change to the future of Axie Infinity. I think is going to have ripples for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, so this will be a fun experiment. And one of the people that's really going to help us coordinate this was actually the guy who's just in here, POS2. But yeah, this is definitely an idea kind of from origins, from the past even. I believe this idea goes way back. Like Jiho was, I think, saying that even like really some of the older school players were suggesting this way back, and it's really cool that we get to experiment with him now. So yeah, this is something small that I think, well, I know for a fact most people only have the opportunity to spectate in because it's really hard to make the top 8, right? But this is for those things highlighted in yellow I show for the final era on that leaderboard. We are going to do when the season ends, the top 8 players are going to play in a special tournament, and the logistics of that tournament are to be determined. I don't know the exact logistics as far as like, is it a double elimination? Do your webcam has to be on? There's might be all these esports rules to it, right? But the general idea is that, and I'm posting it now, this is just for the final 8. So some of the AXS that they would have earned, they're not going to earn at the final era. They're going to have to wait for the tournament to kind of play through to get that extra AXS, if you will, and to get their border. And so this is how it's going to look. So we're going to have the final 8 players compete in a special tournament, named to be determined, and then they can play for the first place players playing for an additional 1,500 AXS on top of the whatever they've already earned from the final era. and obviously the season winner is at stake here for all intents and purposes. So in order to win the season and get the official sort of Substack announcement and the Discord announcement and the rank 1 border, you actually have to win this tournament, and you can only qualify if you're in the top 8. So it is going to change the season, I bet. I won't speculate too much because I already know Spam and other really competitive players have talked about this. But there will be some changes as far as how people play the seasons, right? Like the importance of sniping the number 1 or whatever you call that probably isn't as high. It's still nice because the number 1 player still earns the most AXS from the final era, but it's not completely the end-all be-all because you really want to win the tournament. So we might see it move down, and it might be super important to hit that 8th spot now. You really got to get in the top 8 so you at least qualify for this tournament to get a chance to do that. So yeah, this is how the structure is. I don't think there's a need to pay the 8th place person because they would just walk away with whatever they earned from the final era anyways. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to level up. You're trying to hit the 7th, the 6th, the 5th spot like that. So it's the first time we're doing this. I think we'll see how it goes. I think no matter what, it'll be pretty exciting in terms of like spectating it. I'm seeing a lot of poop emojis on it, so that's kind of interesting. not great, but
personally, I love the idea just in terms of like storyline and hype. This is probably like, I love watching Axie tournaments. I love casting Axie tournaments. When I think of like what is the best tournament we could possibly make, I couldn't think of anything better than this. This is the cream of the crop of the best Axie players coming together at the end of each season to really battle it out and find out who the best player is. It's a very interesting mechanism. It's going to be extremely exciting. Emotions aside, biases aside, I am horribly excited for this tournament. And if I don't get to cast it, I'm going to be a little upset. But
yeah. And do remember, despite how much AXS there is up top for those that are concerned that there's a lot of AXS up top, at the end of the day, we still also took out 10,000 AXS out of the leaderboard for other sources. So it's like the leaderboard in general is still becoming less weight. So if you're not a super competitive player and you don't have good faith that you can finish in the top 8 or the top 100, let alone, do realize that even this season there's still a big step toward taking some of the weight off of the leaderboard and moving it into other areas. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. Now, if we could move on to events. So we've seen major success in these events in the past. We've seen a lot of different variations from the Filipino Independence Day event to these blitz races. Do we have anything planned for season 6? Anything that we can leak at the moment?
Yeah. So this is sort of a new... I think it's good to do this kind of moving forward, which is to kind of give a preview of what we have in mind. Again, nothing's officially final, but like instead of just wait and see and only hear about 2 days before things happen, I want to just kind of talk about like what to expect in season 6 in terms of event and live ops without the dates, but at least that you'll know, like you can kind of make a checklist and kind of as we go, as you see them, you'll know, oh, cool, we've done that one. Let me just show it really quick here. So kind of what we can expect to see is 3 daily login bonus events, right? So those are the kind of like a daily login calendar that comes up. And you'll probably see that the rare era, the epic era, and the final era for a short bit. We're probably going to have 5 unique contests, it looks like. I kind of ran the math on how the season's looking in 7 weeks, and I'm thinking 5 unique contests sounds right. Guaranteed 1 race as well. And we are trying to optimize the races. I got some really good feedback from some super competitive racers that do really well in these race type events for the contest, and they gave me some good feedback on them, and so I'm trying to implement to see if we can't change how the race works a bit. We'll also have 1 or 2 fortune chests, like the traditional kind that actually have AXS in them, or in this case, the EM AXS in them, and possibly some runes and charms, and like other things that pop out, moon shards, like the whole kit and caboodle thing, right? We will definitely. So this season is going to take place when Halloween is. So Halloween will be somewhere in the season. I believe it's like end of the Epic era, somewhere around there. So we're definitely going to look to do something pretty cool for Halloween. Like I personally love Halloween, and because I personally love Halloween, that means like there's going to be a bias you guys see inside the game in terms of like, you know, trying to do a little bit more for it. You know, we love it when the backgrounds change. It actually suddenly doesn't feel like it was that long ago we had Halloween, because I'm kind of remembering everything from last year now when we had those little ghosts. Remember this? I think this was even before accessories were out, right? And they had those little ghosts, and everyone like went crazy for the ghosts. So yeah, look forward to Halloween and some events and an event there, or at least one. And then we're going to do this new thing as well. It's kind of using the fortune chest technology, but this is going to be like SLP bonus chests. So I think like a while ago, if you guys remember, I don't know what season it was, maybe 3 or something, we did like this thing where it was like an SLP extra weekend, or like there was a bonus SLP thing or something like that. Well, now that we have the fortune chest sort of ability or technology, we can do this cool thing we're going to try where we just load up SLP in these fortune chests, and if you get one, you just open the chest and it just has SLP, and it's almost like getting double SLP, let's say, or something for your battles, and it's going to like last a weekend, and then you're just going to want to play more, and you can just get more of it. You can use it to craft whatever, and there's a chance of a jackpot and all that. So yeah, the idea of kind of more randomness. And then we'll do 2 of those check your mail events, is what I call them. We did 2 last year. The first one was a little janky. I think there was like an expiration issue. But yeah, we're going to do probably 2 of them this season. And as a reminder for people, it's just one of those things where make sure your Discord notifications are on, like you're following all of our Twitter on Axie Infinity and all that. It's just a thing where we put out a post saying you have an in-game mail, it expires in 24 hours. As long as you log into Origins in the next 24 hours, you get to claim it. And that can be anything. It might be like a rune, it might be a charm, it might be, you know, something like that. So we'll probably do 2 of those as well. So that's kind of what we can expect in terms of events this season. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot to look forward to. Thank you so much, Zoser. For now, I do want to turn it over to Cruz. First off, Cruz, thank you so much for making it. Let's make sure that your audio is all good before I start throwing questions at you.
Good point. Hello, testing, mic test.
Hello, you sound good. You sound good.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Cruz, could you say a few words about yourself before we get started?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. In case you haven't met me or heard from me before, my name is Cruz. I'm the product manager. The other half of Zoser here, been on Origins for over a year now. Really focused on building the infrastructure, working with the engineers, making sure that we build scalable systems for all of the new users to come, and have a lot of exciting things to talk about in that regard today. So yeah, nice to meet everyone who I haven't talked to before.
Thank you, Cruz. Thank you, Cruz. The first question I have for you is, what is the general product direction for Season 6?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we've talked about this at previous town halls for the last few seasons. We want to make sure that Origins is in the best spot possible to onboard as many users from other Web3 communities, but also from just general Web2 space into coming into this game. Like I've heard a lot of feedback in my year plus of working here. Hey, Origins is cool, but it's a little complex. It's a little difficult to learn. The time from install before I have fun is a little long, and it's hard for me to really share this game to my friends. And that's feedback that we've really taken to heart. And Season 6 is kind of our first real shot at seeing if we can make that user experience better and have the Origins that we know and love be easier to communicate for our friends and our family and other people from other game communities. That's the direction. New users and immediate fun on day 0.
That's great. I'm sure everyone can agree with that mentality. Yeah, I'd love to be able to throw Axie at my friends and immediately go into some battles and yeah, I think working towards that direction is a great plan. Now, how could you go in a little bit more in depth about how we are optimizing for new users?
Really good question. So exactly to that point, right? If you've introduced any friend to Origins in the last year, you come in, there's a tutorial, and then you can skip it, and there's another tutorial, and then you play through adventure, and then there's another tutorial, and then there's text box and text box and text box. And it has been very hard just getting people to, the interesting part of the game so you can battle your friends. So we're testing a few things in Season 6. When you play Season 6, you'll realize that we have temporarily disabled the adventure mode. And we have gotten people straight into what we think is the most fun aspects of Origins, which is battling your friends and battling people on the ladder. So we've also taken all of the tutorials, all of that content, and reduced it to a 6-click tutorial. So it should be very quick, and you can also skip it for new users to come in, play an interesting battle, and have that onboard you to, hey, and the ideal outcome for this is maybe when you first introduce your friends to Origins, they go, hey, I don't really get it. I don't really understand why this is fun. And ideally, and I would love to hear feedback from everyone here, is that immediately in the first 5 minutes of gameplay, people should be able to look at Origins and be like, hey, I have an inkling, a brief snippet of why I think this game could be fun and interesting. And hopefully that kind of pushes them over to continue playing the game. And as far as from the marketing plans, as Zoser has been mentioning a lot, we've been really playing a lot with the leaderboard. Anyone who's been here since the beginning of Origins, this leaderboard has been kind of the number one feature to look at in the game. Everything has surrounded the leaderboard. Everything is all about how much you can climb on the leaderboard. And as people know, like even at the beginning, there was only 40,000 leaderboard spots. How can we onboard all of our friends, all of our family to a game where the only interesting thing for people to do is constricted by this number? Like we can make this number 100,000 leaderboard spots, but are we saying that we only want Origins to be playable for 100,000 people? And what Zoser was saying is we believe that no, like we want as a company and as an organization that Origins can grow well beyond how many leaderboard positions there are. And so we've kind of moved a lot of our efforts, or we're slowly transitioning our efforts from just focusing on the leaderboard for other rewarding experiences and progressions in the game. Like we've talked about this for Season 5, but we want to make it that if your new friend comes into Origins, we don't have to be like, hey, craft this perfect rune and charm set, have the perfect Axie team before you can have fun. It's like, no, you can actually enjoy the game, doing other things, making other progressions, having other methods for fun and for interesting achievements in the game. So again, we're trying that a little bit in Season 6. We'll see how what the data shows for all of the new users coming in. Are we retaining them better? Are we seeing more engagement? Are we converting more of those new users into deep, compelled Web3 engaged users? And depending on that data, we will iterate more and more and more, because we are determined to growing this user base and growing this game. And we really think that Season 6 is the starting point for that one.
Well, that's great news. I have a couple projects under my belt that I'm trying to push to onboard new users, and this is going to make that process just way smoother. So
yeah, sure.
that's great to hear. Now, aside from just new users, are there any new features for Season 6 that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit, but just to reiterate, like we want more reasons to play the game outside of climbing the leaderboard. So you're gonna see. So for a very long time, people have wondered, hey, what does this EXP bar do in the game? And initially, it kind of just unlocked the different features and was a little bit of pacing for onboarding new users. So we've removed that, where now all features are unlocked immediately from the game, and now your EXP bar can unlock interesting things. This is how you'll unlock Axies, like starter Axies. This is how you'll unlock different resources. People have come into the game wondering how to get different cosmetics and stickers, and now we've introduced this new path for it. So for all of you guys who have been part of the Origins family for this whole time, you'll be happy to know that EXP that you've been collecting in the background will have more value. And also that system that we've been using, the system that we've built to kind of give rewards for people as they progress through this reward track, we are planning on using that as the bedrock of new and exciting passes and interesting ways to collect progress through the whole season and for the whole of the user journey. Additionally, we've seen a lot of excitement for Axie experience points. What does that look like? People have been collecting them. People have been clamoring for them. I don't want to say too much, but one thing is that we are pretty heads down with making sure that the reason to engage with Axie experience points and level up your Axies is as compelling as necessary. So that is something we might be releasing a little bit within the season 6 timeline, but also stay tuned for more news about that. So again, progression, progression, progression. If you're not climbing the leaderboard, you're still feeling good.
Holy
and
moly.
more systems around that. Yeah.
Cruz, you're blowing my mind right now. That was one of the that's a very deep read between the lines kind of leak right there. And I obviously it's purely speculative, so I can't go out and say it. But if people go on Twitter right now and they start looking at some of the tweets people are tweeting out, I think they can probably put 2 and 2 together here. That is horribly exciting. I'm very hyped to hear more about what is coming with AXP in the future there. Now, I want to move on to some of these new starter axes that we saw introduced in the town hall last week. I believe they are Bing and Zia. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, so great question, Ryan. One thing that we want to do is, again, from day zero, from minute zero of playing Origins, you'll play with your team and you'll understand why they're cool, and you'll be open to this world of what Axes are. Puffy, Oleg, and Bubba, they're cool, great mascots, love them to death. They're going to make fantastic plushies one day. But playing them together was a little bit of a head scratcher for a lot of new users, myself included, when I first started playing Origins last year. So Bing and Sha, are 2 axes that will complete this triumvirate new team based around Bubba that new users can come in, can learn about Rage and Fury and do cool stuff. And if you've played other mobile games, you know that new users should experience cool and interesting things immediately, and that is what they were designed to do. Bing is actually inspired by our art director's dog, so it's very, very funny, very cute. And lore-wise, the 2 of them have very interesting connections to some future stuff that we're going to announce and reveal. So kind of tying in all the stuff that I was just talking about, there's a lot of really interesting things that these 2 new starter axes do together. But also, one more tease maybe. We've released a feature about enhancing and promoting your starter axes, kind of to get people's interest on this idea of vertically progressing axes in general. While we have interesting things to do with AXP in the future, we also are interested in what does that look like for starter axes in general, and how can we better teach new users on all the exciting features that axes have to bring. So again, yeah, Bing and Sha, more so than previous starter axes, will usher in interesting new ways to engage with starter axes, I guess is what I'm going to say about them.
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. Again, I feel like there's more. I feel like every word you say, I'm glimpsing these leaks, and purely speculative. But I feel like we might be seeing some new adventure stuff. Is what my mind is jumping to. But again, that's purely speculative. I don't have any of this information. But thank you, Emmanuel. I do want to reiterate. Did you say it was Chow? I think I pronounced it Zia.
Yeah, it's Sha, like
Sha.
SHA.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll get it.
I'll get it. Thank you for correcting me there. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Vince, I'd love to bring it back to you. And I want to ask, are there any other changes to the seasonal progression itself?
Yeah, so there's just 2 more small ones. We don't even need a visual for it. It's more conceptual if you're listening. The first one is that there's going to be more moon dusts and moon stones, especially those ancient moonstones, at the end of the eras. This is also because there's now 4 eras. So like when the epic era ends, for example, you'll be getting a good little chunk more of the mystic moon dust and ancient moonstones to kind of help with crafting as well. So that should help. And then another small thing is each time you reach like a new tier, or like a rank tier, like when you hit hare for the first time, or bear for the first time, or dragon for the first time, there's a big jump in moon shards that you get immediately as your first time reward, like a pretty significant one, just so you can go kind of turn around and craft right away and see if you can keep that momentum going. So those are just kind of 2 small things mixed in as well.
Awesome. So it seems like it's going to be maybe a bit faster in terms of crafting, a bit more access to moon dust and moon shards. So that's all good. I don't think anyone can complain about that one. I think that's good all around. Last season, I apologize. You leaked earlier. You mentioned a little bit about this earlier. You were mentioning that there were some rewards from the leaderboard. From the AXS pool allocation, specifically for collectible axes in Origins. Could you elaborate a bit more about that now?
Yeah. So specifically regarding collectible axes, let me pull up the visual right now for you. It is going to be in the view only chat. Okay, so these are some chests we made, and I'll go through the details of it soon. So again, the idea here is, and this is a high-level Axie Infinity thing, there just needs to be more utility for owning collectible Axies, right? That should be a very cool thing to it. Whether you have a Summer Axie, or you have a Japanese Axie, or you have a Mystic Axie, it should not only feel cool, it should come with benefits as well. So we're really trying to double down on that in Origins. And as you guys saw last season, we had the kind of the experiment where, what if we gave, for just owning a collectible Axie and just having it sit there and, be in your, designated hot wallet in this case, I guess, that you play Origins with, what if you just got free runes and charms? So that's what we did. So we want to continue that experiment now and kind of escalate it to, okay, well, if you have a collectible Axie in your wallet and you also play Origins, or we can get you to play Origins, or you already are, let's add another reward as well. So in this case, it's going to be AXS, which I referenced earlier in that chart you looked at when I said there was, 6,500 AXS allocated to collectible Axie bonus chests. So these are the bonus chests. And so how it works is it does involve playing, like I said. So the first thing I want to clear up is, just like last season, nothing has changed. It's only been added. So if you have, a Mystic Axie or a Christmas Axie or whatever, and you were getting those runes and charms in your mailbox and that felt good, that's still going to continue. That is untouched. So what we're adding now are these special chests where, depending on your highest tier of Axie, which was also how that one was based, by the way. So if you have like 15 Japanese Axies and a Mystic Axie, we're going to give you rewards for the Mystic Axie. It's not going to look at anything below it. It's based on your highest Axie. So based on your highest Axie, we're then going to look at the rank that you reached as a minimum criteria, just to keep this simple. And if you have the collectible Axie and you reach that rank, we're going to give you the chest. So let's give an example. So if you have an Origin Axie, right, which is the second, so the tier 2, and you manage to reach Tiger in Origins in the rare era, then you've now completed that, and when the Epic era starts, we're going to give you that Origin box to open. And that will have between 500 to 3,500 EMAXS. So yeah, 0.5 to 3.5 AXS. And then we'll repeat that again. So now you play the Epic era. If you finish Dragon, so you have to go up a little higher, mostly because of elo inflation, to be honest with you. It's because it's easier to get higher MMR later as there's more players. It's one of those things. Then you'll get another chest. And then if you play the Mystic era, which is just that 1 week, by the way, so you really got to play in that week, and you hit Challenger, and then when the final era starts, we'll give you another chest. So you basically get 3 opportunities of these. But it's only for your highest tier. So if you have like a Mio and a Japanese and a Christmas and a Mystic, you don't have to worry about anything but the Mystic. Just by having the Mystic, that's going to be the chest you get, and you either get it or you don't get it. And you're going to get the chest if you finish in Tiger, Dragon, Challenger. So that's basically the simplest way I can put it. We're going to have more information about it in the Substack and things like that. But for all of you guys out there that have any collectible Axies, from a Mio to a Shiny to an Origin to a Mystic, I would, recommend just trying to hit the minimum requirement in Origins so you can come collect that chest.
I think this is a great way to start this sort of incentive mechanism for collectors, because it's not just as simple as owning the collector Axie and collecting a reward. It is all about playing the game at the end of the day, which is exactly how it should be, in my opinion.
Now, I do want to say, because I already imagine there's going to be a question about this, so I might as well just pre-answer it. So I want to kind of put a disclaimer that this is an experiment, right? So this is the first time we're doing it. And keep in mind, we're trying to go for like a target AXS allocation. Like, we're trying to specifically say, let's give out 6,500. Well, it's really hard to make that prediction sometimes, because it's tough to know exactly what holders are going to play the game and meet the criteria and what holders have what things. Because if you have a shiny and an origin, okay, well, obviously your origin's going to count. Now you give the shiny to your friend or something. So kind of where I'm going with this disclaimer is that some of these numbers are kind of weird, and there might be questions about them. And you're like, well, how come Japanese is the lowest? Well, it's because there's a lot of people that played last season. This is based on last season data that had a lot of that had Japanese Axie as their highest tier, and also played. And so because there's so many people, we have to adjust the AXS so that, you know what I'm saying, it all funnels so that we can still give more to Mystic and more to Origin and all that, but still try to hit our target. So this is by no means a perfect system. It's experiment 1. We're going to try to optimize not only each season but each era. So these numbers might slightly change by the era. So if the rare era comes out and we're like, oh my god, there's way more Origin Axies among people that are hitting Tiger than we ever imagined, we need to make some adjustments on the fly to these boxes. So yeah, we'll be transparent about it, but just keep in mind that, you know, it's an experiment we're doing and this is the first go. So yep.
Thank you for the clarification there. Now that is all of the questions that I have prepared for you. I would like to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions in chat, or if they want to come up on stage, raise your hand. Zozer Cruz, are there any last notes you want to touch on before we take these questions?
No, I don't think so.
We've covered it all then. All right, let the questions fly. Rohan is asking any crafting changes, and we've heard that there's going to be maybe some changes to the amount of crafting materials that we receive, but are there going to be any changes to the crafting system as a whole?
For this season, no, because I feel like it's one of those things where it's like it either needs a giant overhaul completely, or we kind of keep it as is. But like, yeah, it's not one of those things that we're just going to keep tweaking. But I feel like we'll have to see what the future of, in general, crafting in the economy looks like. That's my take on it. I don't know if Cruz wants to add to that.
Yeah. So nothing for season 6. We have something in the works for a future season, maybe 7 or 8, depending on how it goes down. But yeah, I've seen a lot of complaints and concerns and interesting, constructive recommendations for what we could do with the crafting season. The crafting system has been untouched since we shipped it, and we've had a lot of interesting ways to kind of make a V2 upgraded version for it. So yeah, nothing to announce here, but we are working on something for crafting.
Wonderful. So nothing concrete yet. But stay tuned. Next question would be, I think there was a little bit of confusion about the collectible Axie chest. So Tanch is asking, do you need to play with your collectible Axie to get the chest? So the question is, do you need to have that Japanese Axie, that Mystic Axie in your Axie team to receive the collectible Axie chest, or do you just need to own it in your inventory?
Yeah, you just need to own it. So just like how last season, by simply having ownership, we gave you the runes and charms, we wanted to evolve that and almost turn into like an experimental battle pass in a sense, where it's like, okay, by owning this Axie, that's activated my pass, right, in kind of like imaginary world, and then how do I progress the pass to hit that milestone? I have to reach Tiger with any set of Axies. So just simply reach Tiger in the rare era. That's all you have to do, and then make sure to own the collectible Axie by the time we do the snapshot, because this is all snapshot based, right? None of this is like a feature that you can see. So I don't exactly know when the snapshot is, but like, yeah, if you already hit Tiger and there's only like a day or two left in the era, then you probably just want to go pick up a collectible Axie, because you're just going to get the reward because you've already met the criteria. So that's another point to this. You don't have to own the collectible Axie when the era starts either. It's just, right, at the time of the snapshot, which is like, let's say 24 hours before the era, or who knows, I don't exactly know when, you have to both be in that rank, and then we'll look at your collectible Axie at the same time. So just like actually in a battle pass in a Web 2 game, you can either buy it late or you can buy it early. It doesn't matter, because yeah. So I hope that answers that.
Right. Yeah, I think that did a pretty good job of clearing it up. I am seeing a lot of questions in the chat about the balancing news. I do want to say that this is not, we're not going to be talking about balancing changes during this town hall. I did see Jiho pop into the chat and say that it is likely that we see balance changes before the start of the season. But outside of that, there's nothing else that we can say during this town hall. Now, another question I've been seeing pop up a lot is what is the idea around not including summer axes into the collectible axie pool? And I have to assume that with the description of the decisions around the Japanese axes, I would assume that including summer axes, there are so many thousands of summer axes in existence that would probably inflate the numbers too much. Am I somewhere on the money?
That's correct. It would inflate the numbers, and it would also, by definition of how many axes there are to how much AXS there is to what a summer axie is worth, it would be such a very tiny, minuscule amount of MAXS in the constraints of that allocation that it wouldn't be worth it either. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense to me, and I hope that that answers the question. We've got another question from Cairo here. He says, "Are there any plans for adding AXP to casual modes in Origin, like making the first 30 games you play in mode count for AXP instead of your 30 stamina?" He says in quotation, in parentheses, "would make a better experience playing collectibles rather than ranking all the time." That's an interesting concept. And I don't think that's one that's going to be easy to answer right off the bat, because it's a concept that I think is probably new for a lot of people. But it's the idea of counting for AXP instead of stamina. So instead of using your stamina to hopefully earn SLP throughout your matches, instead you'd be earning more AXP to help level up your Axie. I think I might need a bit more clarification from Cairo on this, but it's an interesting idea.
I think in general...
Yeah, go for it, Zoser.
I was just going to quickly say, in general, I think AXP, there's a lot going on with it that, like, Jeff Cam on Twitter from Axie Core is going to kind of help define, and how you can earn it in other ways, and even through Axie Core itself. So like, there's definitely a bigger thing going. Like, I kind of hear Kairo's concern in general of like, yo, how do we like get AXP on our collectible Axies? There's like plans coming, but I don't want to really say too much. But yeah, you can say more, Cruz.
Yeah, and I think we, as evidenced in the last season and this season, we want to value and honor our collectible Axie holders and make sure that all of the systems that we build make sense for them as well. So we have some stuff brewing, me and Shade, on how collectible Axie holders can earn AXP well. So yeah, that'll be more announced definitely between now and next season.
All right, wonderful. Let's see. I might be running out of chat questions. Let's see. Cairo did expand here. He says, right now you are grinding AXP, or just do you ranking to bore? Instead, you should be getting AXP from casual mode. Oh, I see. I see where the question is pointed more towards now. But we might start bringing people up on stage here soon. I see a question from Tanch. If you could elaborate a bit more, Tanch. I tagged you in a message, but for now I am going to bring up some speakers here. We have LMT Arrow. I've invited you up to speak. If they are still around, they should pop up here shortly. And they disappeared. Maybe not. All right. Moving on. Virtua. Let's bring you up.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Zoser. Cruz.
Hello.
How are you?
Veruda, how are you doing? Welcome up.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the speaking of you all. Thanks everyone from the other side of Discord. Just a couple of quick questions. Have you considered about the rune and charms boxes, the choice boxes, to have them back? Because I imagine you gathered some information from last season, considering the prices, the market, the people playing in Mystic Epic Era. Have you considered bringing them back? And the second question is, having in consideration that the turns made some less have some less time, like less seconds. How are we doing about the bugs? Because some of the bugs that we've been experiencing in the last seasons were about like disconnections or invisible card bugs that we should reset the game, and that consumes time. So I I think that it's a problem that should be addressed if you have some less time in turns, that we have addressed those bugs, just to considering that we don't play the turn or having the game experience.
Yeah, no, I get to, that's a very good question, Ruda. So to the first part, the collectible or the free rune and charm boxes. So actually, looking at the data from the engagement levels for last season, it was quite a lot. Like, we were also concerned that as we reduce those runes and charms, would people play less? But we saw there was still a lot of engagement all across the board from new users, existing users. People were like, you can see on chain, there's a lot more mints than we expected. There was a lot more rune and charm transactions than we expected. There are a lot more unique people making those transactions, and a lot more unique people minting, which we think is cool. As far as how that tracks in the future, like as Zoser mentioned, we're treating every season as kind of this isolated way for us to see what's best and collect data and use that to educate further seasons. So just because, so for season 6, we are not releasing more free runes and charms. But that being said, that doesn't mean we're never going to do it ever again. Keep giving us feedback, give us more stories or comments on how that has been good or bad for different people in the community, and we'll definitely want to reevaluate that every season going forward, because we know that is a very big point. The free runes and charms. To your second question about the shortened timer and the bugs. So obviously, none of us in this chat want there to be bugs in Origins, and that's something that has been a concern of mine specifically in reducing the turn times. We want to make sure that the animations are good, that the pacing of the match is good, and that the impact of each bug isn't so drastic, especially for the top competitive players where every second matters, every turn matters. We've reduced from our end, from our visibility, the bugs and the crash rate by a lot in the last 2 seasons. We've made fewer and fewer kind of large mechanic changes that should break things, but keep reporting to those. Keep reporting. Like Hale and Jaster do a great job siphoning those feedback into our QA team and our dev team. The invisible card bug is something that has just been sitting on our Jira board for longer than I've existed, and that is something we're trying to fix. But yeah, hopefully we're seeing more and more, especially with season 6, that there are fewer and fewer game impacting bugs, and that we're quicker and quicker on responding to them. And yeah, if the 45 seconds is too fast for season 6, again, there's nothing saying that we can't readjust for a later season. Yeah,
Okay,
hopefully
that's great. Yeah, thanks very much, because there's also something that went up to my mind, that the clear and the card clear and the innocent lamb still have like very slow animations. So in archetypes like Topaz or some sustains, or you have to play too many cards, and it's still slow. So if we could fasten up also those animations, maybe 45 seconds would be better.
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, so we have a very, so you might have seen the Winghorn and the Feather Dagger animation changes that we've had. We have a huge list of new animations that we're going to be putting into the game soon. I wanted them to be put into season 6, but we ran out of time. So sometime in the middle of season 6, yeah, we hear you. We definitely want to make sure that there are no cards that are just taking way too much time in and of themselves. And we want to make sure that the animations don't treat one archetype better or worse than another archetype. So yeah, Innocent Lamb, Clear, those ones are definitely on our list.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great questions.
Ryan, I want to answer a question Nick's had that I know people are waiting for, and the reason it took me so long because I was actually analyzing it and internalizing it and actually writing about it to think to make sure it's how exactly we want to do it. Because some of the benefit of this town hall, by the way, is that sometimes we show things, and this happens in the balance town hall too. We'll show something and it'll get a lot of attention. It'll make us think, okay, let's make sure that this is actually correct. So I want to answer Nick's question, which by the way was, is the graphic showing the collectible rewards final, or is there a typo? Okay, so the initial answer right now is, as of this moment, no, there's no typo, right? And so let me explain the methodology for how this came up for those who are interested. And again, it's experiment number 1, and we're going to decide, well, does this need to be tweaked? So the methodology is like this. Basically, there's these tiers of collectible rewards, right? Like Mystic is clearly the highest, it always will be. And then Summer is the lowest, which isn't on there. And using kind of a series of like different math that other people have used, like Jiho, which is like looking at the floor price, how many exist, how long it's been around. There's like these ratios that come about, okay? So what we do is we take the total AXS we want to give out, we divide by those ratios, and then we look at how many holders there are. And the thing about the Japanese axes there are a ton of holders that play Origins. So because there's so many, the AXS is lower because so many holders. If you multiply the AXS times the holders, the actual AXS we give out to the Japanese axes is actually more, but because there's a lot of holders, there's less. Now, is this the correct way of doing it? Well, now because of these comments, I'm starting to rethink if we might have to reshape this. So we'll look into this. We have a little bit of time. We also have future eras because this is an experiment. So yeah, I just want to comment on that because I do see the intuitive nature of why is Mio giving out less than Japanese. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for that clarification. And to sort of tag along on that, the question from Tanch, I got a little bit of clarification there. He's wondering about if you look at that graph with the collectible Axie rewards and that criteria section. There are 3 listed criterias. So whether or not you finish Tiger in Rare Era, Dragon in Epic Era, or Challenger in Mystic Era. But as we saw earlier, we now have a 4-era season. So is that criteria, when it says you finish in Mystic Era in Challenger, is that referring to the Mystic Era, or is that actually referring to the final era? And if it's is referring to the Mystic Era, are there going to be rewards for the final era?
It is referring to the Mystic Era, which is only a week. So if you finish the Epic Era and Dragon, you want to hit that extra level of Challenger in that week. There will not be for final. The reason is we're still in the mode of, just because of how we distribute AXS, to be honest with you, we try to get everything compiled as close to right before the season ends as possible. So for the sake of this, we are we're just doing the first 3 eras, and then you get the rewards in the ones after that. So in the final era, if you finish, no matter what you finish, by that point it won't matter, because that way we don't have to give out the chests in the off season and go through this whole process of like making sure everyone opens their chest during the off season in time for us to like pay out and mint the AXS. So yeah, it'd be great to optimize this one day, this whole AXS payout at the end of the season. It's very manual right now. It's very much like we just literally have to do this whole tally and then make sure to scatter it all. So yeah, for now, it is like what you had said. So when you finish the Mystic Era, which is 1 week being Challenger, you'll get the box at the beginning of the final era, and that's the last box.
Right. All right. Thank you. One last question about these collectible Axie rewards, and I'm seeing a lot of love in the chat for the summer Axies, and we already talked about why it doesn't work from a logistic standpoint. But I did see a very interesting comment about the possibility of maybe earning moon shards, or maybe even something like SLP in lieu of AXS for collectible Axies like Summers. Is that something that you could see? Because again, this is an experiment. This is purely experimental. We're trying to gain data and figure out the best system possible. Is that something that you could see could be a possibility for the future, or is that something that would definitely need more thought put into it?
I missed the first quarter of that question. I was reading this thing from Ron. What was the first quarter of that question?
The first part of the question is there's a lot of love for summer Axies, and the question is, could we see a future where there are collectible rewards extended to summer Axies, but with SLP or moon shards in lieu of AXS?
Yeah, I can see that future for sure. Yeah. I love summer axes too. To be honest with you, any chance I get to do something with them, I very much like. We did last season. We did the Axie Olympics, which is really all about. It was the Summer Axie Olympics. It was all about summer axes. So yeah, I think that when we say utility for collectible axes, we don't intentionally want to exclude summer. So yeah, I think that's even a good idea.
Great. Now this question comes in from Saad, Saad. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We would love to know if the Halloween event is a breeding event. If we can get some leaks, thank you. That might be a tough one to squeeze out of these two, Saad, but I'll do my best here.
Well, it would be tough if the answer was yes, but sadly, no. The answer, the sad answer, the very sad answer is no. But that's okay. We have a lot of other cool stuff happening between now and the end of the year that'll be shared, across different platforms and different leaks and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. And TG asks about part upgrades and the potential of Mech, Dusk, and Dawn cards. These are questions that have haunted the Axie community for a few years now.
Yeah, I mentioned in chat a little bit. So Mech, Dawn, and Dusk, on my first day on the job, Zoster was there. I was like, hey, what's our plan for this? Let's get this out ASAP. But as everyone knows, working with the blockchain is a fickle beast. We have announcements lined up for potentially what those things can be, especially with what part upgrades may or may not be, and at some point in the near or eventual future. But what I can say is the Mech, Dawn, and Dusk it is a tougher nut to crack, but we are actively working on both of those things. We want to make sure people have new ways to play, more vertical progression, but also more interesting horizontal progression. So both high up on the radar for us to build out.
Wonderful. Let's see. TG does have his hand raised up. If we did answer your question, then great. I'm going to go to Totnakers right now. And TG, if you still have questions, then I'll get to you right after. And it looks like Tot may have left the building already. So let's go ahead and pull up TG.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. How you doing, man?
Oh, great. Sorry, I'm on the phone right now. Thank you for having me. So I had a couple of things in my mind. This is not about balance. This is more about the competitive integrity. And I don't know. I'm gonna ask you guys, like, if this said or not, can we have like a rule book for the competitive? Like, because like right now, yeah, you're gonna have like these top 8 events at the end of the season, but things are still gonna happen, and we could really use a rule book to follow, just like other card games. Just take Magic Gathering as an example. The second one is the 45 second. I know you're experimenting with it, but can we have it on 60 seconds on the esports mode? Because, like, again, on tournaments, you need to do a lot of calculations, and 45 seconds is not enough. I saw the tournaments, I saw many of the matches, and I saw how players were making mistakes because they had enough time. Yeah. The other one. Sorry.
No, go for it. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I'm muted. All right, I'll take this, TG. Nice suggestion. So, for the rule book, I think it's needed, right? So, I'm going to talk to community protection so that we can come up with a rule book, like including the leaderboard for this season. And for the 45 seconds, I think we've had a lot of testing, and our testers were confident that 45 seconds is enough for all the comps, and chat is saying it's enough too. I think it will, players will get used to it eventually, but yeah, we are confident that 45 seconds is enough for all the teams, for all the comps out there.
I would like to point out too that the tournaments that we've seen the past 2 days they're on a brand new meta, right? The balance patch just dropped, so there's a lot of changes in how a lot of these comps operate. There are a lot of brand new comps that people aren't familiar with seeing, and that will also affect the mentality of how they play their cards efficiently. I do agree that I think, given enough time, this will sort of feel more natural.
Yeah, and one more plus one. As I mentioned before, we are fine tuning a lot of the animations and the card effects. We want to make sure that the 45 seconds makes sense for all people who are using all cards, and we don't want the animation time or bugs to have any impact on which teams perform better or worse with 45 seconds. So hopefully, between all of that, we'll be okay.
Oh, can I ask like just one more, please?
Go ahead.
So this is something that happened to me. I'm pretty sure happened to a lot of people. To be able to like upgrade your starter axis, like, is a long way to do that. And like could we have something like a new system or something to be able to unlock them? Because, for example, I didn't play a season or two when you released this new system about the starter axis, and I'm having a hard time unlocking them all. And I like, for some of them, you kind of like need them for like at least rare era. You know what I mean? And like, there's no other way. I play all my energies every day. I play all the events. I try to grind as much as I can, and I'm like, the progress of that is really slow.
Yeah, I could take this one. Yeah, really good feedback. And when we first released the starter upgrading system, a lot of it was really vetting out the tech and the systems to make sure that we can update and change axes. Since then, we've released new axes. We're going to release new starter axes, and we're going to release some more new starter axes. I've been monitoring a lot of the data on how long it takes people to progress these starters, and it is taking a lot longer than we expect, especially for people like you. We don't want to punish people for like taking breaks. Obviously, we want to reward people for engaging and being part of the community and playing a lot of Origins. But we don't want to make it that it's a too high of a hurdle to ever get back into Origins because you feel like you've missed out on too much permanent progression. So we do have a system in the works, just in general, how we're thinking about vertical progression of axes in general. So that should be coming soon, but not for Season 6. So yeah, unfortunately for Season 6, unless if Zoser has something cooking that I don't know of, your pace of honor medals and class badges are going to be kind of what it is right now. But yeah, we hear it, and that is a concern that I definitely want to make sure that new users coming in next year, they're not faced with all of these axes and they can't upgrade any of them. So we want to make sure, there's a path for them.
Thank you. You guys are doing great. I know things take time to develop, and like, this is a new technology, but yeah, you guys are doing great. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
TG.
man. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, and just to add to that really quick, sorry, I was like somehow server deafened for 15 seconds. I have no idea what went on, but just to add to that, TG, like since last season, I kind of did this idea of like this almost like a new starter axie contest, and so we're doubling down on that again this season. So you will soon see that there is this idea of sort of like a let's celebrate that there's new starter axes, and with that comes a nice influx of honor medals and badges. So that'll also help a little bit too.
Wonderful. All right, I'm gonna throw TG back to the audience. I might have lost that ability to do that. Oh, okay. Never mind. I got it. I figured it out. We're back on track, everybody. All right. Discord is glitching out a bit for me, so I can no longer see some of these names. So I'm bringing up a guest right now whose name starts with H. If that's you, hello. Can you hear us?
Hello, bro. Where are you? All fine.
Wonderful,
You hear me?
wonderful. We can hear you great. Do you have a question for us?
Yes, I have a question about the change of the leaderboard rewards, because you short the leaderboard to 20k to 5k, but the first 10 positions have more MXs, but the all the rest have the same of the past season or a little lower. My question is why you do this? Why is the perspective? Why is it the motive to make this short? No upgrade from the reward for this the 5k players in the top.
Yeah, I can take this one. So there's basically two things going on here, and the first thing I want to point to is again that there's 10,000 AXS less in general that we distribute to this leaderboard, right? Because if we want to maintain the 112,000, which is just something we're doing right now, then we have to take from some and we give from some. So we want to make sure that fortune chest still exists. We want to make sure contests are still a thing. We want to make sure contests are even more inclusive, right? And that's something I'm looking to do especially. I'm conscientious of, by the way, with the leaderboard being a little more top heavy, then plan on seeing the contests at certain times especially be a little bit more like friendly towards players that might be at the bottom of the leaderboard anyway, like as an example. So anyway, going back to this, we actually introduced, right, so the collectible Axie rewards. Like this is something super important for the economy. Like it's in all of our best interests. I truly believe as an Axie community that collectible Axies have utility and value. So that's like 6,500 AXS that we need to pull from somewhere to make that. So the first part of the answer to your question is the entire leaderboard is a little bit less. So that's going to scale towards all players, but like we saw, because of the restructuring, the bottom half of players. That's the first answer. The second answer is, even if you just look at the percentages alone and you ignore how much total AXS is there, there's sort of a hypothesis that I believe that we're trying to kind of change a mindset, which is the mindset in Axie Infinity since the beginning of Classic all the way till Season 4 was that if you want AXS from this game, you need to be on the leaderboard. And that simply changed only last season, and people still aren't used to that. And that means from weekly missions, which is just, I know a little, but contests and fortune chests, and now this collectible Axie thing, that there's other ways to earn AXS. So the general thinking is that the players that are sort of happening to finish, let's say in 20,000th in the past, or maybe only in the top 10,000 or 5,000, they get a little bit less AXS, but those are the same players that I would hope are more encouraged to even play the fortune chests or play the contests. And one example I gave earlier, which I think is true, is that players in the top, let's just say 25, near the end of an era, near the end of a season, they tend to play less games, right? And that's something we can solve on a whole other competitive aspect about how we can get them to play more games, but they tend to play less anyways. So if we synergize something like Fortune Chess event to happen at the end of eras, you're going to see all the players that are like trying to quote unquote camp, as certain people call it, playing less games and having the ability to get less fortune chests, and the players that are sort of just more casual and whether they finish 2,000 or 1,200 or 2,500, maybe there's a range and they're trying their best, they might use all 30 stamina and have more access to those. So the general thinking is the players that are not finishing as high on the leaderboard should have more chances to earn AXS from other ways. That's the hypothesis, that's the experiment. If that fails on a perceptive level or on a data level, we'll look to change that. But yeah, that's the thinking. I hope it answers your question a bit.
Yeah, I understand. Well, and if I can, a second and the last question is, this balance with the off-season, is the definitely balance to start in AC era and this new era, or maybe coming soon a new balance or something like that for the cards, that cards like Google or something like that?
Sorry, I think I missed the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a little bit of static there. Could you reiterate the question?
You can hear me?
Yeah,
Well,
there's.
Okay, I repeat the question. I ask about this in these off seasons. is the last no more change in the cards, no more balance in the rooms or something. This is the like.
Oh, got it.
So we're not touching on that today. I don't have those answers for you, but I did see Jihos in the chat that said that we will most likely see a balance change before the next season. So that's I think that's all we can say for now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Leah. Thank you.
Yeah. Once the season starts, that's all locked. But up until then, it is up to the balanced team discretion for. What
Okay,
gets
thank you. Well,
All right.
I don't have no more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to move you back to the. Oh, we got him back to the audience now. I have a question here from Rohan. He says, I'm just going to read this word for word. He says, I have a question for Zozer. Have you considered reworking the way milestones work in most events? Many times, in order to access the last milestone, it is mandatory to breed/release or complete 100% of objectives, and that is very difficult for people that can't release or breed. Sometimes there's like one sticker in a milestone and one sticker in leaderboards, so I think it would be great if people could complete all milestones and reach the first cosmetic for free, no releasing or breeding, and then people could compete for X amount of places in the leaderboard by releasing axes and breeding to receive more limited reward. That way you would have at least one cosmetic for everyone who played here at the time, and more limited rewards for the people that are competing by breeding and releasing. And to add to that, I would like to say that I think part of this idea of getting AXS into the hands of more casual players is specifically so they have the opportunity to try more aspects of the ecosystem like breeding. So that in and of itself might help to alleviate this question from Rohan, but I will pass it over to Zozer if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I definitely saw it. He also Twitter DM'd me, so the question's now everywhere on my life. It's good. This is kind of how it started, to be honest. This is how it used to be. I don't know how much it's really steered away from that. I guess a little bit it's being perceived more than I thought. But it used to very much be the first few contests where it was like a total gimme to get the 2000 milestone, like very, very, very easy. And there are some that have fluctuated where you have to do something a little bit. Like you have to do a little bit of an on-chain activity, like do potentially one release or one breed or something close to that to hit the 2000 milestone. And I know how important the 2000 milestone is. We can definitely look into something like this where to go back to that polarizing kind of mindset where the milestones are a little easier and have the leaderboard be that much more competitive though. So, I mean, just keep in mind, there's always going to be a complaint in this somewhere because the more competitive the leaderboard is, that means there's going to be like the infinite release mission once in a while, let's just say, and that always gets like complaints, even though it's obviously good for the ecosystem. And then, yeah, so I hear the concern, and yes, we'll pay double close attention to the milestones because I do really want to make sure people can earn the cosmetics. Like that is a really important part, is distributing these cosmetics to active users. So if there's a miss there, I'll look into that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Zozer. I think we're starting to run near the end of this. We are about 24 minutes over the hour. This has been great conversation, so I've been loving it so far. But I'm starting to run out of questions here. If there's any last minute questions, feel free to throw them in chat. We'll try to get to one or two more before we close this thing down. Ragnar.ron says, can we get Atia Blessing to remain active until 24 hours have passed? I think this is probably a play on the reserve days or some way to build up a reservoir or some form of protection against maybe missing that prayer by an hour or whatever it may be for people.
Yeah, not related too much with the question, but Atia's Blessing has got a lot of traction since we've released it, and that idea of blessings and praying has been something that we on the team have been pretty interested in. So hopefully we can get some cool things going in the game eventually.
All right, so wonderful. So I think that is ultimately more of an app.axie side thing, not necessarily relating to Origins as much. So unfortunately, this isn't the right team to answer that question. My apologies. But let's continue. Let's see if I can find any last questions here. Okay, so again, relating to the Atia, do you think that there could be a possibility in the future that we could introduce the Atia's blessing as an in-game mechanism?
Yeah, actually, that is something I'm currently looking into. It is increasingly complex to have on-chain interactions happen within the client, but we know that opens up a lot of things more than just the blessings, and that is some tech that we are diving into right now, actually.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's in the works, nothing concrete yet, but that is exciting. That is exciting. I have one last question here, and I might need a little bit of clarification. But they ask, please, is there in-game rune charm trading in the future? More in-game interactions within the community. So this very similar concept to what we just spoke of. But
yeah, exactly. We want to make sure that we honor the Web3 aspects of the game and not just simply build a bunch of Web2 mechanics. So yeah, we're ideally getting to a point where there will be more trading and on-chain interactions happening without having to leave the client, or at least not have to go too far away from Origins. So yeah, we definitely want to foster a lot of in-community trading and make that as easy as possible.
Right. I think that's the majority of the questions I'm seeing now. Like this one, is there ability to create areas for guilds in game as well? Yeah. So I think all of these really community-based objectives are in the woodworks, right? They're being worked on. But as for season 6, I think we've pretty much run through the majority of the information. So I think it is time to bring this thing down to a close. It has been a lot of information to digest. If you came in late and missed some of the information, this has all been recorded and will be uploaded to the Axie YouTube channel as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that if you're missing out on some info. Chuck Fresco, I see you. We got you, brother. Do not worry. As for the rest, thank you all for joining. Zoser Cruz, do you have any last words?
There was a question for when we're going to have the Why is Ryan So Cool town hall, so we should get that scheduled in the books. We'll block out 3 hours for that one.
Oh my God, I'm blushing. Thank you, Cruz.
Yeah, but nothing else from me. Thanks so much for hosting and for everyone for joining. Excited for season 6. It's going to be a really cool one, and yeah, really excited for the other stuff we're going to be announcing soon.
Yeah, just excited for the season as always. You know, I always make a ton of time to play it, so I'll be definitely grinding it a lot. And I'm curious to see where it's at when the season launches. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, I've even seen from the game designer right now, like, yeah, balancing is not officially final. It never is until the season starts, right? And then even after the season starts, runes and charms are never off the table. But just for those of you who are really concerned about balancing and stuff, just realize that the right people are on it, and it is not final and loaded until that season starts. So when the season starts in about 48 hours, you'll probably see a Substack and a Discord post and whatever, and that is where you can read any of the final small changes or big changes that happen. So I'm excited to play this season. I hope you guys are too, and yeah, let's do it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, this will be on YouTube if you missed out, and good luck on season 6. I'll see you in the arena. Bye-bye.